podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to a new podcast, The Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of The Paddock and the Pavilion. The show can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify and Stitcher. Please feel free to give us a rating and a review to let us know what you think of the show so far. The Paddock and the Pavilion has now reached 33 countries, and a special mention to our growing band of overseas listeners in the United States, Australia and the Caribbean. Let us know what you think of the show by contacting us on Twitter or Facebook on @thepad&pav. We'd love to hear from you. With World Mental Health Day on Saturday the 10th of October, and with the current pandemic expected to unleash a tsunami of mental health issues, I caught up with Simon Bailey, the National Chaplain for Horse Racing UK. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, today it's a pleasure to welcome Simon Bailey, the National Chaplain to Horse Racing UK. Welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion, Simon.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for having me on.
In today's podcast, we're going to chat about your role, the challenges, and your love of sport yourself. To start with, can you give us a bit of background about yourself?
Yes, I was born in Stoke-on-Trent, which isn't a hotbed of horse racing, as you probably know, but I grew up in a sporting household. My dad played cricket, my brother played cricket, so my uncles, my grandfathers, I'd kind of been born and brought up, around that, and the North Staffs and South Cheshire leagues. And it was just assumed that I would go on and, and have a game for the club side as well. So that's what I did. But we really were a sporting household, and we just love all sports.
So it was very much a sporting family, especially with your brother. But you weren't quite as good as him.
No, not quite. Rob always wanted to play, I think, to the ice that his ability would take him. And I think he signed for Northants in 1990, I believe.
And this is for listeners. This is Rob Bailey, who played cricket for England and is now a first-class umpire. So, and I can see as we're recording here, Simon's got all his wisdoms at the back, which show off his love of the game. And he told me earlier that most of them are ones that feature his brother. So he's keeping the family support of the family up. Could you sort of explain what your role is and what's involved?
Yeah, so I became the National Chaplain to the horse racing industry in 2014, and Sports Chaplaincy UK is linked with racing welfare since about the year 2000, and it really is to look after those that work in the industry, those that work on yards, studs, around the race courses. We all know that life kind of throws us things, at times, and there was always a feeling that staff would need to talk to somebody at some point in their lives. And so 2000, the horse racing chaplaincy was born, and I came in, as I say, in 2014.
And this doesn't cover jockeys, does it? Jockeys are for the PJA, the Professional Jockeys Association?
We do tend to cross over a little bit. So I visit the British Racing School. I try to go there once a week. Over these past few months, obviously, it's been a little bit harder to get round. And so I would probably see the younger up-and-coming guys that are just starting out. I would see them there, and that would probably integrate into their early years as well. So as soon as they go out on a yard, we would probably cross paths. I can think over the last year or so that there's maybe one or two who have had issues that obviously we won't go into, but it's been nice that they've asked my help on, occasions.
And what area do you cover?
So with horse racing being a UK sport, I would probably say that it would be any of the areas that have a stud farm, a yard. So that would be from the southwest to the northeast.
Right, so it's the whole country then, yeah. Whole country,
yeah. I do have some help now. When I came in 2014, there was just me on my own, and you can't do the UK on your own, as you know, Stephen. So we have a chaplain in the northeast. I think Sedgefield is his closest course, but he helps with the staff that kind of live and work around there. and we have a retired vicar in the West Country, and she's probably been on board the last 2 years, and she kind of helps with the yards around that area, around the Gloucester area. So it's not just me. We've got some chaplains on specific race courses. York have had a chaplaincy team for quite a number of years now. The chaplain at Chester has been in place for about 5 years. She's doing extremely well. So odd ones around the race courses, but it's just nice to, to have some help, around the UK.
And what's your typical day like? What do you do on a daily basis?
Typical day could start early mornings watching the horses train. It's just nice to have a chat with the staff, as they cross the main roads in Newmarket. Just have a chat, see how they're doing. We pick up a little bit of work like that. Maybe sometimes just in that chat, they just get a quick chance to say, is there any chance I could have a word with you later on maybe? Or, I'm off next week. Is there any chance we can meet up? So that would probably start there. Trainers are always good to have a chat with, as they pull up to watch their strings. And from there, probably, as I say, if I could, I would try to go to the British Racing School. That would be another port of call in my day. And then towards lunchtime in the afternoons, I try and leave time in the day to see staff that maybe need to be seen one-on-one.
And you said you're at Newmarket, so presumably you on occasions go to Lambourne and places like that and do the same sort of thing.
Yeah, so same kind of thing. Probably over COVID, not got much chance to go out and about, but I think just in the Newmarket job, it's kind of a job in itself. So it's a big town, a lot of horses, a lot of staff, and the workload hasn't stopped, which has been good.
Yeah, I was going to say, how has it been affected by COVID? Presumably your travelling's been affected.
Yeah, I haven't had much chance to get around the other towns, but I would say around COVID, I was quite hopeful at first. I thought because although race days had stopped from a racecourse point of view, the training was in place still. So we'd still got the staff at work, staff being paid, and I thought we'd be okay. I thought we might come through it unscathed, if I'm honest with you, but I think we've seen the signs over these last few weeks that maybe we're not going to get through it as unscathed as we, at first thought we were.
So it's obviously stopped you doing sort of things like house visits.
It did for a while. We just started to do phone calls, probably the end of March, early April, and then it was sparked off by one call I had, and it was a retired member of the racing industry that said, I quite enjoy your calls, but it isn't quite the same. I'd quite like it if you came round. And so we put into place that anybody with a lawned area or maybe a front yard, a backyard, 2 chairs, if they felt safe and they wanted me to go round, I soon kicked in back going, around, and obviously we kept apart. But I just felt if they were, happy for me to go around, I was happy to call in on them. And so probably end of April, I did that, and it's worked quite well.
And what sort of problems and issues do you encounter when you're speaking to members of the racing industry?
All kinds of issues. I think every issue that anybody in any industry can face. So it could be relationship problems, it could be work issues. In horse racing, there's a big accident and injury, thing going on. I think I read a stat once that you're 20% more likely to have a bad injury in the horse racing industry than you would be on a construction yard, for instance. So there's always somebody to go and see, somebody who's off work, either long-term sick. And as you know as well in the industry, we have deaths as well. And, and I get to look after that side of life as well.
Yeah, because you actually do the funerals for people in the racing industry in Newmarket.
Yeah, it's the sad part of life, really, for that one day, to do the service. Yeah, it's extremely sad, but in another way, it kind of opens out the town. It opens up. I think what I'm here for is to offer that care, and that's not just care for the one day. It's it's ongoing care, and it's nice to be part of. So even in the sad times, it's always nice to be part of not just that day, as I say, but the ongoing care of maybe loved ones that have been left behind.
And you're also connected to racing welfare, that's correct?
It is. So when Sports Chaplaincy UK teamed up really with Racing Welfare in 2000, and I think somebody saw that it might work, that where the Racing Welfare team would look after all staff, stud staff, yard staff, but would deal with their kind of, issues at work, maybe occupational health issues, if they were in any financial issues. They would kind of deal with that side of life, but down to the injuries and illness that, I've just shared, they felt they needed somebody to come alongside them, and to help with those kind of things. So, as I say, we're 20 years in now, and it's I think it's a partnership that we both enjoy.
Yeah, for listeners, Racing Welfare are a registered charity, and they provide support for the workforce of the British horse racing from recruitment to retirement. And the relationship with you and them works well?
It does. It's been a good one. We've worked together, me personally, for six years. I think we've gone from strength to strength. I think the name's out there more now. I think as the years go on, the more staff you help. And I think the good job that we do and the good job that they do, I think has stood them in good stead. And I think, as I say, I think certainly in my 6 years, it's been a fruitful time, I think I would say.
And chaplaincy service is growing in sport. I read somewhere there's over 300 sport chaplains in the UK.
Yeah, there might be a little bit more than that. I think we now boast about 650,
wow.
And that's just in Sports Chaplaincy UK. And it's in all sports. It's in all sports, whether pro sport or grassroots clubs, football, rugby, cricket, horse racing, obviously. We have gym chaplains, and we're really anywhere that maybe somebody is going to want to talk to somebody, maybe doesn't want to tell their boss anything, doesn't want to tell the trainer anything, doesn't want to tell the coach anything for maybe fear of being dropped or being viewed in a different light. So I think our job is to offer that kind of, ear to be told things that won't get back to the boss or the trainer or the coach. And I think that's where we come into our own.
So you must have to be a very good listener in your job.
That's the first and I think the most important thing is, you listen first and you probably talk, as little as you can. I think that's the key. Yeah, I think that's the key.
What would be the main qualities to do your job?
I think an empathy is always good. You don't have to understand, everything that everybody's going through. You don't have to agree with everything that they're going through, but as they know that you want to help them in some way, shape or form, I think that is the key thing. And that help could come from me, and that could be just a one-on-one thing, and I think I've got the skills to help them, or it could be after we've met for a time or two with the individual that I understand that it isn't me who has the skills to help them, and it's kind of my job then to pass them on, perhaps to other organisations that can help more. And do you have connections with other sports in the chaplaincy? Yeah, sort of industry? We have a Sports Chaplaincy UK conference every year. One's coming up in October this year. It'll be online, unfortunately, but normally we get to meet and we get to have a chat and we just get to band about a few ideas. It's always nice to hear what other folk are doing, isn't it? And so we do that, and it's always good to stay in touch because we're all part of a team. If we see each other every now and again, or if we don't see each other at all, it's nice to know you're part of a team, and it's it always helps if we can share those things and be there for each other. I think's important. This programme is going out with World Mental Health Day coming up on the 10th of October. Why do you think sports like cricket and horse racing suffer with mental health issues? I don't think it's any one thing, Stephen. I think it's huge, and I think the two sports that we're talking about, they may be similar in a lot of ways, but they're different also in a lot of ways. I think with horse racing, it really is an all year round sport. There's no close season, there's no off season, no time to go away for a month or two to, to recoup. Once the flat season's done, you're into the all weather season, and there's jumps, racing all year round as well. So I think that takes its toll, and I think we've seen jockeys that have to drive from one course to the next, sometimes two in a day, and I think it's hard work. And I think on top of that, you've got the weight issues. They've all got to keep a certain weight, and that weight is always in between 8 stone and maybe 8 stone 4, 8 stone 7, I don't know. And I think that over a longer stretch of time, I think that can cause, issues as well. So I think we've really got to watch. And I think horse racing started to take mental health seriously about 3-4 years ago. And it does even more so now. And we're always trying to push that. We always try and push the importance of, I think, in the sport, and it's an elite sport, it's fine being fit from the neck down and being the right weight. But I think if your head's messed up and you don't think the way you would think, as you should think, or we think, that's when it's good for us to step in and be that help, and just let somebody have a chat to us. I think it's all key that it's a fitness from the head down. I would say with cricket, it's a difficult one also, because we've had instances of mental health issues and suicide for a long time, and I would just say it's been part of a team. It's been part, of your mates. It's been part of going home and away and being in that same team for a good length of years. And I think when that comes to an end, clubs tend to just move you on, and you don't feel as included, and you feel left out. And I think a lot of cricketers have tended to go from being part of the hub, being part of the team, being in and around everything, and the adrenaline's going. And I think once all that stops, it's hard to find that again in life.
That's why they're very soon forgotten, I think, aren't they?
Absolutely soon forgotten, yeah.
Yeah. Going back to something you said about horse racing, we've had some very tragic suicides of Liam Treadwell and James Banks in 2020. What support measures does racing have in place to help jockeys and people to help prevent that happening in future?
It's very difficult. I would always say the first thing to be able to give anybody help is for that individual to come and ask for help. It's very hard to know what's going on in somebody's head, and you'll only ever really spot that if you see that individual on a day-to-day basis. If you don't see them, it's hard to spot. So I would say in this podcast, and to anybody who ever listens to me, if there's anything going on and you feel you can't share it with somebody, you really must share it. You really must tell somebody that you're not okay. And I think we had a strap line for horse racing and the mental health, industry last year. It's okay not to be okay. And I think sport has always held a line of, you've got to front things up, you've got to man up, if you like. And these are terms that we don't really want to use anymore, because it's hard to front things up when there's maybe things going on in your life that you've just got to share with someone you can trust. And so that would always be the advice, is for somebody to ask for help if you need that help. And once they've done that, that kind of opens the door to all kinds of opportunities that we can, either help them ourselves, or we could pass them on to organisations that can give that help. And I think it's key. I think it's a two-way street, this. I don't think we ever really see the signs in somebody else, but I think they need to ask. And I believe really with James and Liam, it would have maybe been tough to ask for that help, or, who to go to for that help.
But you think racing is doing as much as it can to help, yeah?
It's doing all as it can to help, and I think it's doing far more than it's ever done. But we're just always in the hands of the individual. We're always in the hands of somebody making that first call, that kind of first cry for help.
Well, thank you for talking about that. It looks like horse racing is in good hands. So we can turn now to your own sporting background and just a few questions about your favourites in sport. Do you remember the first test match you went to?
I do remember the first test match I went to. It was England versus the West Indies at the Oval. That would have been 1988, I think, 1988. Would that have been it was the last test, and it was that test series that England played everybody that was eligible to play for England. They couldn't find a good side. I think they were 2 or 3-0 down in the test series, and I think Graham Gooch, I think it was his first test as a captain. My brother played, Rob played.
So the first test match you went to was to watch your brother, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
You must have had good seats anyway. So
we did have good seats, and it was a good first day and a half. I think we bowled the West Indies out for something like 180 odd, and Neil Foster got 5 or 6 for not a lot, 6 for 40 something, I think. But unfortunately, it all, as it does with England's test side over those years, it all kind of fell apart quite quickly. So that was the first live test match I saw. The 1981 Ashes series against the Australians was the first one that I saw on the TV, and I think that just kind of fueled my love of the game.
Right, turning to horse racing as well, who would be your favourite jockey and why?
I've got to go with some of the younger ones now, maybe, but I think before I maybe share them, going back to 81, because that's the time, that's the year that, as an 8-year-old, I remember all my first kind of sports, and the Grand National was won by Old Nitty in that year, as you well know, Stephen, and when Bob was on board then, and there was that whole story of Old Nitty was a horse that perhaps had seen its best days. It had an injury after injury, shouldn't really have got around the course. And Bob had the illness as well. I think he'd had cancer 2 years earlier. So I think it was the whole thing around that kind of struck me as a lad that, wow, there's this race and it's the hardest one in the world to win. And that kind of caught my attention then. So I couldn't answer your question without saying Bob, as a place of my heart, Bob, a champion. I love the interviews that these new guys do. For instance, O.C. Murphy, I think he's absolutely great now for the sport, and so probably he'd be my pick. I just think these guys have got so much time for everybody. In a sport that can bring you the stresses and strains of life, they're expected to win. They get abuse if they don't win now, because it's easy on their Facebook and and Twitter. And I think they all handled themselves well. So I'd probably go for Osin.
Well, you also get to see Bob Champion in Newmarket, so
he'll
be pleased with what you just said. Yeah.
He's just up the road.
And then going back to cricket, then who would be your favourite batsman? And you're not allowed to choose Rob Bailey, by the way.
Can't say Rob Bailey. No, I don't think anybody's ever asked me this question. Who would be my favourite batsman? I guess in a Northants side that Rob kind of joined in the early 80s with, I think Alan Lamb would probably be a pick of mine.
And what about you're a big sports fan anyway?
Yeah.
What about your favourite ever day watching sport, actually at the ground?
Oh, it's got to be a test match. It has to be a test match. I do buy into the shorter format of the game. I don't mind the T20s, but I just think a test match is and always will be, the peak of a sportsman, and especially in cricket, if you're going to make it to the top. For me, I think you've got to do that, at test level.
Any particular day, though, when you went to a sporting...
First day, and it'd have to be at Lord's as well. It's still the best test ground in the world. First day, I think it's just the buzz of the crowd, as that first ball, the all comes into bowl, and I think it's I think the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. I don't know if you've been in the long room at Lords. I think you have, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's kind of those kind of things that just make that ground the ground that you've got to go and watch a test match there. And on that first day, 11 a.m. on that first day, absolutely fantastic. And probably the first day, the Tuesday at Cheltenham, would be on a par with that as well, I would say.
Well, thank you for sharing those favourites with me. We're coming to the end now, but what does the future hold for mental health in sport?
Well, I've already said I think we're doing a good job, but it's not beaten, and it's not beaten by a long way. So we're doing okay, but I don't think we can rest. I think we've got to push this, and I think we've got to keep pushing it. We've got to get it out there all the time that, please, if you're not doing okay, find somebody to talk to, get that help. There's enough help now in place, I think, in the industry to get help. And as I've said again in this podcast, if it's not me, we can pass you on to somebody else. So I think the future is a long one. I don't think we're close to eradicating it, but the building blocks are in place, and I know it will be someone for as long as I'm in and around the sport. It will be something I will continue to keep saying this, time and time again. Get help. Just ask somebody for help. And I think as long as we all keep on, and beat that drum, I think that will help. And so I guess I'm a man of hope. I have to be a man of hope, don't I? So I just hope one day, it's all beaten, but I know until that day comes, there's somebody there that can help, and I hope I'm one of those that can and does help.
And in these difficult times, with the prospect of the next 6 months, have you got any key messages of how we can all remain positive?
Yeah, I think the key is, like these last 6 months, you've just got to focus on those things that are worth it. And that could be anything. If you're still in a job, focus on that. If you've got loved ones that you need to look after, if they're dependent on you, look after them to the best of your ability. If you play sport, do that to the best of your ability. And it could be as simple as a walk or a dog walk, or get out and about, get that fresh air while we still can. Do things that you like to do. Don't let these times stop you from doing those things that you like to do, unless everything's shut down again, which is unfortunate. But make it work in some way. And take up art or whatever, but just keep your mind active. I found that the more I think about others and the more I plough my time into helping others, it stops me thinking about myself so much. And so I think that's key as well. Look out for those around you, take care of those that you love, and be active.
Well, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for coming on the Paddock and the Pavilion, and please keep up the good work. Thanks for inviting me, Stephen. I've enjoyed it. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Pad and Pav.
For further information about racing welfare, go to www.racingwelfare.co.uk.
Sports Social Podcast Network.